There's one skill you need to master in order to play recitatives well, and it's the same skill you need to play chamber music or large ensemble music. That skill is listening. But how do you actually prepare recites, which have some inherently tricky aspects, so that your focus can be on listening instead of playing? In this video, I'm going to show you how to practice and prepare recitatives, going step by step through the same method that I used to learn to listen first and focus on what I'm playing as a distant second. Okay, let's begin. So in order to focus your energy on listening rather than playing in the moment of performance, you need to know beforehand exactly how the music goes. And by music, I mean the notes and the rhythms, but also the text. And I don't mean to memorize it. I'm going to show you how to prepare your score and your mind so that you can quickly and efficiently read what's on the page and tap into muscle memory to perform recites. Also, this video isn't going to focus on how to read basso continuo figures or figure out what chords you need to play. So if you need help with those things, check out my other videos on how to play basso continuo. And please subscribe to my channel, where I put out new videos every Tuesday about early music and about harpsichord and basso continuo playing. Okay, so in recitatives, the rhythms happening in the text can sometimes be hard to discern just by glancing at the page. So the first thing I do is write in large lines on each beat, so it's very clear where those beats are and I don't have to expend mental energy thinking about it. Here's what that would look like for the first recit in J.S. Bach's St. John Passion. The next step is to write in a word-for-word translation of the text. Don't use a poetic translation here. You need to know what each and every word means, because that's going to guide the shapings, articulations, and textures you use in your playing. Here's what my word-for-word translation looks like for that same Bach recit. Jesus ging mit seinen Jüngern. Since I'm not at all fluent in German, the way I create my word-for-word translations when there isn't already an existing one is I find a poetic translation. In this case, I found one that looked good on emmanuelmusic.org. And then I rearrange and alter the words to make it a word-for-word translation, checking words and passages I'm unsure about as I go, using a German-English dictionary or Google Translate. A word of caution about Google Translate, however. If you're going to use it to help you create word-for-word translations, make sure that you generally use it just for single words and not for phrases. Otherwise, it's likely to lead you astray regarding word order. After you've written in your translation, the next thing to do is to start to become familiar with the musical material. I find that the best way to do this is to play the chords while singing the vocal line on a neutral syllable, such as bum bum bum. Now, in this step, I hold the chords for their fully notated durations so that I can really be clear of the harmonic material in the music. But in real life, the chords of a simple recitative, also called secco recitative, will be played with short durations in a practice that's called short accompaniment, which we'll discuss in just a minute. But for this step, hold on to the chords, and make sure to go as slowly as you need to really understand what's going on harmonically, stopping and fixing things as necessary. Here's a little bit of what I mean. Bum 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 bum. Now we're finally ready to start putting the text and the music together. But in this step, you'll sing the text in your native language, i.e. your word-for-word translation, slightly modifying the rhythms in the vocal line to fit the words when necessary. You'll also play short duration chords in this step, since you should already know the harmonic material of the vocal line in the continuo part since you worked through it in the previous step. The goal of this step is to figure out what's going on where in the text, and to determine if there is any text painting, such as the large vocal leap and the unresolved dissonant chord on the word betrayed. Judas, however, who him betrayed. Or the sudden shift of tonality a measure earlier on the text Judas, however, indicating a shift in mood and character in the story. And his disciples, Judas, however, who him betrayed. Here's a little bit of how this step as a whole should sound in the end. Jesus went with his disciples over the brook Kidron. There was a garden, into it went Jesus and his disciples. Now, let's talk for a minute about why you play short chords in recitatives from the late Baroque period and some other periods, instead of holding the chords for their fully notated durations. This was the common and well-documented practice of the time. The likely reason why recites were written with long note durations instead of short notes with a lot of rests is because it saved ink and, most importantly, time when writing out music by hand. We know that short accompaniment was the common practice of the time from both musical and written examples. These include a few continuo lines from some of J.S. Bach's music, where the continuo part has quarter notes with rests marked in it, while the full score has the normal whole note notation, such as in some of the parts for BWV 11, the Ascension Oratorio, as well as in text sources such as the treatise by Johann, published in 1711. Once you've worked through the step of playing short chords while singing the word-for-word translation, the next step is to speak the text in rhythm in its original language without playing or singing. If you need to, you can take an intermediary step before this one, speaking the text out of rhythm. If you're not sure about the pronunciation, there are a lot of great resources on the internet that can help you figure it out. And the goal here is not perfect pronunciation, as you'll unfortunately see in a minute in my own demonstration. While excellent pronunciation would of course be ideal, what you really need to know as a basso continuo player is where the natural stresses are in the text and what the rhythms are in the vocal line. I recommend avoiding listening to recordings simply because they can influence your interpretation of the piece, and I'm a big believer in coming up with your own interpretation. So I prefer to look up text pronunciations rather than listening to recordings to ascertain them. If you already know the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA, symbols, then the diction charts over on IPASource.com are very useful. You can find those just by Googling IPA Source Diction Help. If you don't already know IPA, then I actually recommend learning IPA. It's not really very difficult. You can actually learn most of what you need to know about IPA from the English diction chart on IPASource.com, which gives English words you'll be familiar with and shows the IPA symbols used to indicate their pronunciation. You can also use the Listen button on Google Translate to help you determine pronunciations. If you're more of a books person or would just like a more comprehensive resource, the diction textbooks by Joan Wall and John Moriarty are both excellent resources. Here's a little bit of the type of speaking I'm talking about in this step. Jesus ging mit seinem Jüngern über den Bach Kidron. Da war ein Garten, darein ging Jesus und seine Jünger. Once again, the goal is not perfect pronunciation as a continuo player. The objective is to learn the general syllabic sounds and natural cadences of the text, so that your brain can follow along quickly with the singer in rehearsals and performances. Now that you've done all that, it's finally time to sing and play together using short chords and the original language. If you've gone through the other steps with care, by this step you should know quite well the story that's laid out in the text and the musical gestures used to accompany it. Practicing the words with the music shouldn't be too difficult. You also shouldn't have to think too much about what your hands are doing. Remember, all this practice has been to free you up so that you can listen. This preparation will allow you to listen to every syllable coming out of the singer's mouth, which is essential for good recit playing. Since you already know the musical material of both your line and the singer's, as well as the meaning of the text and which words are most important, you're set up excellently to support the singer both musically and emotionally and be perfectly in sync with them. After this step, you're ready for rehearsal. Here's a little bit of demonstration. Jesus ging mit seinen Jüngern über den Bach. Da war ein Herz, da ging Jesus über seine Jünger, etc. To close this video, I want to reiterate just how important listening is when making music with others. If you can learn to really listen well, all problems of ensemble melt away, and you become deeply involved in the moment music making with the musicians around you, which is where the true magic in making music with others lies. Okay, that's all for today. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that little notification bell so that you get notified every time I put out a new video. And please give this video a like if you found it useful or helpful, and leave me a comment below with any questions you might have. Thanks so much for watching.